Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 21 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 20 of A Game of Thrones, Eddard 4. For those keeping score, that puts Ned level with his wife Catelyn on 4.
That's right.
Jon and Bran are just behind with 3, and then the peloton behind that.
As always, we'll chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, and indulge in a little pedantry. Be sure to check out the show notes. They provide some additional information about the characters and other things of interest in the chapter.
Yep.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm all right. So I went to see the doctor.
Yes.
And the doctor, I had my shirt off, and she said, I'm a little bit concerned about this. I'm going to take a photograph of it. And I was like, that makes sense, take a photograph of it. She said, will you unlock your phone? And she used my phone to take a photograph. And she said, make sure you bring your phone next time you come. I was like, that's actually kind of a smart way to do it, really.
A little bit trusting that you're not going to accidentally delete it or something. But
that's true, yeah. I'm kind of worried about whatever's going on back there. So
I went to a dermatologist years ago, like 10 years ago or so, and I had a spot on the top of my head, and the dermatologist, dermatologist was looking at it, and she went, and you're like, that's not what you want to hear the doctor say. And then she said, I'll be right back, and brought in a second doctor. I was like, what is wrong with my
full hazmat suit?
Yes. Anyway, we got a lot to
I'm glad you're still with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get down to business with a quick recap of what Ned was up to previously. Last we saw of Ned, he was with the King's party in the Trident. His daughter Arya and Prince Joffrey and Arya's direwolf Nymeria had their toothy disagreement.
Yep.
And Ned had put Lady, Sansa's direwolf, to the sword and sent her body north to Winterfell. Unbeknownst to him, his son Bran had awoken in Winterfell, and his wife Catelyn had beaten him to King's Landing. McKelly, why don't you give us the summary?
All right. So Eddard has finally arrived in King's Landing. But minutes after entering the Red Keep, he is summoned to a small council meeting for an urgent matter by Grand Maester Pycelle. Not all members of the small council are present. King Robert and Barristan Selmy are still on the road, and Stannis Baratheon is in Dragonstone. Present are Renly Baratheon, Petyr Littlefinger Baelish, Grand Maester Pycelle, and Lord Varys. Ned has the impression that he doesn't belong with this group. Ned is reminded of Robert telling him that he's surrounded by flatterers and fools. He suggests they wait for Robert and Barristan, but Renly tells him it will be a long sit, as the king doesn't often attend these meetings. Ned is shocked to learn that the urgent matter is the king wants a tourney planned in honor of Ned's appointment. We also learn that the crown is in incredible debt, more than 6 million gold dragons in debt, actually, according to Littlefinger, the master of coin. 3 million of those dragons are to the Lannisters alone. And Ned decides the realm can't afford such a tourney, and he will talk to Robert about it. He dismisses the meeting abruptly at that point. Turns out Ned got to King's Landing so far ahead of the royal party because he and his household rode well ahead after the unpleasantness on the Trident. He has still not forgiven Robert for it. And Sansa was blaming Arya for Lady's death, and Arya was devastated by Micah's death. So as Ned is walking to the Tower of the Hand, Littlefinger tells him that he's going the wrong way. He follows it up with, your wife is waiting. Ned, naturally, is confused as he assumes she's in Winterfell. But regardless, he follows Littlefinger through the passageways and over cliff walls, where Ned eventually finds Catelyn in a room in a brothel, of all places. She tells him of the attempt on Bran's life and being saved by the wolf. Littlefinger points out that Tyrion would not have acted alone. Ned questions if Cersei played a part, or possibly even Robert. Littlefinger thinks it's unlikely that Robert would have known, and he also suggests that they just let the whole thing go. But Ned is too stubborn for that. Cat then tells Ned she's told Littlefinger about the theory of Jon Arryn's death. Ned sends Cat back to Winterfell immediately, and when she gets back, she is to raise some bannermen and prepare to defend the north from attack. Ned will try to prove the Lannisters killed Jon Arryn. If he is successful, he will go to Robert and hope Robert is the man he thinks he is, not the man he's afraid he's become.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It is. It's a good chapter.
Yeah. So he hasn't been in town 5 minutes and already urgent meetings.
Yes. It's the price of that power and glory and having a rather lazy king.
Yeah. So he borrowed clothes for this small council meeting.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I hope they fit. It would be kind of funny if he was wearing Robert's clothes or Littlefinger's clothes.
He references Varys as the council member he likes the least.
Which is interesting, but it does make some sense. They are very different. Ned's rather upfront and direct, and Varys is not. He kind of does everything in the shadows, on the sly.
Yeah, but Petyr Baelish is probably right up there for the slyness factor. So
at that point, he hadn't met Petyr Baelish yet,
right,
so maybe his opinions changed in a matter of seconds.
Yeah. So Varys expresses condolences over Joffrey's mishap and says that he's praying for him. You don't think that's a good idea by Varys?
Well,
I have a difference of opinion here, you see.
Yeah.
That's why I'm throwing this to you.
I just feel like, if you're going to open a dialogue with Ned, bringing that particular subject up and taking Joffrey's side might not be the best approach.
Right, but I'm going to read a little bit.
Okay.
So Varys actually says,
time.
Lord Stark, I was grievous sad to hear about your troubles on the King's Road. We've all been visiting the Sept to light candles for Prince Joffrey. I think Varys is sort of being a little bit mealy-mouthed there. When he says the troubles on the road, he means Ned's troubles.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't mean Joffrey's at all. Uh-huh. And then he sort of like, politically, he says, well, what I mean, of course, is what happened to Prince Joffrey. I actually think, and I wonder if I'm influenced by the TV show here, because Varys is played really well by Conleth Hill in the TV show.
Yes, he is.
And he's very good at bridging that sort of saying one thing meaning the other kind of thing. And so I'm maybe slightly influenced by that, but that's how I'm perceiving this, that he is actually putting out an olive branch to Ned and then simultaneously saying, oh, of course I mean Prince Joffrey.
I wonder if Ned picked that up, though.
He's
a rather direct guy. I don't know that
he is not as subtle as Varys. Yeah.
He actually references, in just a minute, that he doesn't like the whole dueling with words
exactly,
situation.
He does, yes.
So he may have missed that entirely.
Yeah. So next...
I did.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, it's just a thought. It's just how I think Varys is saying that. So next, Ned meets Renly, who's one of the 3 knights sent as an honor guard for the King's return. He's raced back to King's Landing with the message from the King, which we now know is get a tournament going.
Yes, urgent matter.
Yeah.
Race ahead with that.
There seems to be some affection there between Ned and Renly, possibly just because of the physical similarity between Renly and how Ned remembers Robert.
Yep. He thinks that he's the spitting image of Robert back when he won his crown.
One thing I noticed in the chapter is Renly laughs a lot. In fact, previously when we saw him, he laughed a lot too. And I just imagine that might be getting in the way of a long-lasting friendship with Ned. It doesn't seem like Ned's a big laugher and big on people who do laugh.
It seems like most people enjoy Renly's company except for Joffrey.
Yes, again.
Joffrey has a very visceral reaction to Renly, but everyone else seems to think he's just kind of a fun-loving guy. Finally, when Ned meets Renly, he also meets Petyr Baelish as they're in conversation when he approaches them. So he's meeting his wife's one-time friend turned spurned love interest, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So they mentioned Littlefinger's run-in with Brandon, a duel over Cat, in which Petyr was injured but not killed at Cat's insistence.
Thankfully,
yeah. Well, thankfully for Petyr.
Right,
I'm not sure it's good for the realm, but it's definitely good for Petyr.
And this is when Ned mentions his dislike of dueling with words style of conversation that they have here, at least in this small council meeting anyway.
Yeah. But certainly Petyr and Varys specialize in talking like that, so he's going to have to get used to it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, but Ned definitely seems like a round peg in a square hole.
He does, yeah.
Actually, is that the right way to say that? Is it square peg in a round hole? I mean, either works,
one's not going to fit very well.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter which way. So they have a quick hello to Grandmaster Pycelle, then they sit down to talk about the urgent matter.
Yes, urgent as it is.
Yeah, Ned realizes he's he's just not the right man for this job. No. He's way too honest and direct.
Yep. He's meant to rule, not meant to play this political game. He's used to being Lord of Winterfell and people kind of just doing what he wants them to do and not have to politically entice them and all that kind of jazz. He also he thinks back to when they were in the crypts of Winterfell, Robert and Ned paying respects to Lyanna, and Robert says, "I'm surrounded by flatterers and fools," and he thinks he knows which the flatterers and the fools are already. And I was thinking that Varys is definitely a flatterer, but he's not a fool.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he thinks of Petyr Baelish. I think maybe probably pegs him as a fool.
Maybe, yeah.
But I think you might be wrong to think that.
Kat certainly respects his intelligence.
Yeah.
She mentioned that he is smart, not necessarily wise.
And Renly doesn't seem like he's a flatterer, and seems a little foolish, perhaps.
Right.
So, Grandmaster Pycelle's interesting. I don't know what they really think of him yet, but I have a little comment on that coming up.
Right, yeah.
So the urgent task is the tourney to honour Ned's appointment as Hand of the King. Ned can't believe that this is what's dragged him from his saddle.
Yeah. The line is, reading the words with mounting disbelief, was there no end to Robert's folly? So he's not exactly impressed thus far with Robert's management style, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's even more annoyed that this whole thing is in his honor.
Yeah, 90,000 gold dragons seems like a hefty purse.
It does. That's just for the purse alone, not even all the other costs that go into hosting such a thing.
Which includes paying for fools. And
yes, Rich Redley points out, fools we have in plenty, in reference to that.
But then this whole thing then comes to Petyr Baelish as Master of Coin, who says, well, it's just more debts for the kingdom. And Ned asks about the debts, and it turns out they're 6 million in hock to various people, 3 million to the Lannisters, and the other 3 million to various third parties, including the Iron Bank of Bravos.
I think we have a little bit of a different take on the Lannister lending.
Yeah, do we?
I think so.
I just assumed my way was correct. So my feeling is that the Lannisters, I don't understand why the Lannisters would keep lending. The Lannisters are rich, but they don't have an infinite amount of money. Why have you lent 3 million to the throne when you see the throne is throwing away the money?
That's true. My thought is that they're basically buying political capital with this loan. Of course, when Robert dies, Joffrey is going to assume the throne. But at this point, I feel like they're just buying political capital.
But to what end? I mean, they're so close to power already.
Right.
It just feels like
you make a good point.
It's like Mike Pence paying Donald Trump for influence. It's like, why? You're the vice president.
Right.
You know? It just seems wrong. It just seems like I would cut them off. I mean, I could understand it initially, especially when Robert first took the throne. They might have needed some cash injection to get the kingdom back up and running again.
Right, yep.
I get that, but to continue to fund his follies seems.
Yeah. It does.
It feels like you're never going to see that money again.
Well,
now,
that's true.
Maybe if you're right, maybe they've accepted that. We're just paying for this influence. We're not making a loan that we expect to get money back.
Yeah, maybe
we're just
they have that
buying,
much money.
Yeah, we're just buying influence here.
It would, in some ways, explain why Robert makes some of the decisions that he makes that tend to go in the Lannisters' favor. It certainly isn't out of love for his wife or respect for the Lannisters in general. But things tend to go... He tends to favor them in his decision-making, or in sometimes his lack of decision-making. Jaime becoming Warden of the East, appeasing Cersei when she wanted a wolf, which was an easy thing. But it just seems like often he sides with them.
Yeah.
Even when he makes it quite clear he's not a fan of his wife.
The other thing that I'm a little puzzled about is where is all this money gone? I mean, they've borrowed it and spent it because Petyr Baelish says there's no money, so we'll have to borrow. But how have you spent 6 million golden dragons? Who's got it? It's got to have landed in someone's pockets.
I'm guessing a lot of the tournament winners. And
how many tournaments have there been? It just seems because
that's a lot of. If you figure that about 100,000 golden dragons per feast / tournament, that's a lot of those to get to 6 million. So it can't be all just feasts and tournaments.
So actually, but that then brings me to another point. Ned says that Jon Arryn would never have allowed this to happen. Is the small council stealing?
Oh.
Are members of this small council stealing from the realm here?
I hadn't thought about that.
Because that just it occurred to me as I read it. He's right. Jon Arryn wouldn't have let this happen.
Yeah. So Pycelle and Renly both point out that Jon Arryn would not have let him spend like he's been spending, but that Robert doesn't often listen to wise counsel, basically.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, I was deep in thought. hence the long pause.
a very pregnant pause. I was expecting you to hit me with some really crazy wisdom there.
But so one of the things that we're learning about Petyr Baelish is that he is personally wealthy. He is only a minor lord. Minor lords make their money from taxes of their lands around them.
He probably gets a salary as Master
of coin, but he's wealthy.
Right. He had that fancy Valyrian steel dragon,
which he could gamble
dagger.
with. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something a bit suspicious about this because I agree. I think Jon Arryn had the power with Robert to curb this, to say, look, hey, we're 2 million in debt. We got to start thinking about ways to pay that off.
Yeah, maybe. At least not to get to 6 million in debt.
Exactly.
Maybe that kind of power, at least, if not the ability to stop entirely. But one thing I found interesting is that Ned references that Ares left the coffers flowing with gold. And so that got me thinking. And so Ares might have been crazy, but he must have been a little thrifty. But he was certainly too paranoid to throw feasts and tournaments all the time. And he also had Tywin Lannister as his hand of the king for a long time. And Tywin did some really smart things. Not necessarily smart in a way that will make people their lives better, but in a way that gain the crown lots of money.
Okay.
Back when Ares first took over, or was crowned king, Tywin bailed the crown out back then with debts. He bailed out their debts with money from Casterly Rock. And he followed that up by repealing all of the protections for the small folk that Aegon V put in place, which made other High Lords happy, and I would assume bring money back into the royal coffers through taxes.
Okay.
And he also did other things like reduce tariffs and stuff. So he certainly helped get the coffers full once again.
Yeah. But then if we do assume that what Renly and Master Pycelle are saying is correct, that Arryn tried to curb Robert and failed, then it's worrying because Ned sees himself as less able to curb Robert than Jon ever was. So
yeah. And if you think about it, if the coffers were full and now they're $6 million in debt, they had to eat up all the money they had and then go $6 million into debt. That is it's such a large sum of money. It just seems like there's got to be some significant waste or theft going on here to me. Something's going on.
Yeah. Ned puts a hold on the tournament, saying it's too expensive. He'll talk to Robert about it.
Yeah, I have a hunch how that's going to go.
Yeah. We learned that the incident between Arya and Joffrey did cause a pretty significant fracture between the houses.
That's what we were guessing back in Eddard 3, that might be what's going to happen.
From that point forth, and we reckoned it was about 16 days, they've ridden separately and not talked to one another.
Yeah. It seems like Ned has issues with more than just Cersei and Clegane. Sandor Clegane, remember, he's the Hound. He's the one that killed Micah. Because he thinks to himself, in regards to Robert's arrival, that it will be too soon, regardless of when it is. So clearly he's not looking forward to seeing his old friend. So he must have some hard feelings still held toward Robert.
Yeah, Robert didn't say anything about Micah's death, which again was one of the things that Ned had in place for. I want Robert to say something about this. And he didn't.
Probably has a lot to do with the hard feelings towards Robert.
And Robert spent the rest of the trip drunk in the wheelhouse. Yeah,
I was wondering about that. I mean, Robert seems like a bit of an alcoholic in general, but I wonder if maybe he was haunted by Micah. I don't know if he actually saw Micah's body. Maybe he didn't. Probably didn't, I guess. But just wondering if maybe he's drinking away the self-loathing that
Yeah.
he's incapable of doing what should have been done in punishing someone for killing an innocent child.
Yeah, but maybe definitely the self-loathing for his own behavior, but maybe just a little step further back than that. The not taking Ned's side
Right.
when the whole argument was put before him.
Yeah.
Micah shouldn't have been killed. Lady shouldn't have been killed. Joffrey should have been censured.
Yep.
And
Didn't do any of that.
and he knows that he's hurt his relationship with Ned, and so that's why he's on a bender.
Yep.
So Littlefinger takes Ned on a wild journey to a mysterious location. Because it's a brothel and he says his wife's in there, Ned thinks it might be just a bad joke.
Yeah.
And, he's planning to finish the job that Bran started.
Yeah, he pulls a dagger and puts it up under his chin, I think.
Although Petyr Baelish actually makes quite a funny comment. He says, Bran might be the tough guy, but he's been dead 14 years,
That's
and here
true.
I am as Master of Coin. So
That's a good point. Yeah.
playing the long game, Littlefinger won that one.
Yeah, you got to imagine Ned's in a pretty foul mood at this point.
Yeah.
He's been on a long journey.
Wearing someone else's clothes.
Right. So if he sees this as a rather crude joke, imagine he's probably not in much of a mood for it. Not that I imagine Ned's ever in much of a mood for a crude joke about his wife, but especially not at this moment.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Sir Roderick Cassell stops in, or not stops in, he stops
Hello! How you doing today, guys?
stops him from finishing the dagger under the throat thing. And thankfully, Ned recognized Cassell without his trademark white whiskers.
Mm-hmm.
So, useful turn of events there, I guess.
So it's curious, you mentioned this actually, that neither Petyr Baelish nor Varys informed Ned about Cat straight away when they see him. So presumably they have incomplete faith in the other members of the small council, that's Renly and Grandmaster Pycelle, to have that information and not blab it.
Right.
I think a couple of times people have said, the more people who know a secret, the less it's a secret. And so
We're learning that, that's for sure.
But yeah, Varys and Petyr were certainly willing to sit on that information.
Yeah. They're also the kind of folks who know how to best use a secret.
Right.
And use information.
Yeah.
Clearly, Kat's not so good at that whole espionage
Yes.
thing.
So the happy couple gets reunited. Ned fears that it's news that Bran's died, but Cat explains everything from the assassin who smelled of horses to Summer, Bran's dire wolf, saving them both.
Yeah, she wouldn't know the wolf's name Summer yet, but we do, so we
that's a
can
good point.
finally
That's a
use
good
the
point,
name.
Yes. Yes. I could have said Bran's as then yet unnamed, but let's call her Summer now. Him Summer now. All of this sends Ned into a bit of a panic.
Well, yeah, as much of a panic as the stoic Lord of Winterfell can muster anyway. He's worried that the gods sent the wolves to protect his kids, and he's just killed one and allowed the other to disappear, so...
Yeah. So Ned wonders what we all wonder, why on earth would Tyrion want Bran dead? But I mean, it also applies to whoever you point the finger at, really. Why would anyone want Bran dead?
Right.
Littlefinger points out that Tyrion wouldn't have acted alone, starts to question the Queen's involvement. Then a terrible thought hits Ned. Could Robert have known?
And that... I mean, that's got to be a hard thought for him to have, as Robert is his lifelong best friend. But at that moment, all of the child murders that Robert has condoned start to flash across his mind. Rhaegar's kids, the talk of killing Dany and Viserys, and then in just the past few days, doing nothing about the death of Micah. So there's certainly precedent, but would there be any motive for Robert to be involved in such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's still my question. You can speculate all you want, but you need motives to give any of this any credence.
Especially with Robert. I mean, clearly he's not a big fan of his wife, Cersei. It seems like he cares more for Ned than he does Cersei, although he sided with Cersei at Derry at the little trial that they had for the kids.
But then again, I mean, I guess if you extrapolate that whole thing from Ned's perspective, Robert knew that Cersei was in the wrong and yet sided with her, ending up with one of the direwolves being put to death. He's thinking, well, it's just a short step and a jump from that to one of my children.
Right,
know?
True. Yeah, that's good. I hadn't thought of that. But again, I wondered if maybe this huge financial debt to the Lannisters might play a factor in some. If there was motive, I'm not saying that Robert was involved, and Littlefinger doesn't think Robert's involved, but if he was, could the 3 million golden dragons that he's in debt to the Lannisters for have been used to pressure him?
When she said the man I married would have had a wolf's pelt on my bed before nightfall, she meant, you owe my family 3 million golden dragons. You better do what I say.
Something like that.
That was the subtle subtext.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. So Littlefinger, who again is Petyr Baelish, suggests that they just throw the dagger into the sea and move on. Tyrion's only going to say that the dagger was lost or stolen.
Yep, and that's all. He can easily just say that.
Yeah.
He's right.
And if it was ever presented to Robert, he wouldn't be able to connect the dots, or like you say, he's pandering to the Lannisters.
Possibly. It's just.
But it's Ned Stark. He isn't going to drop this.
He's much too stark.
Yes, indeed.
And he points out this exact thing to Petyr Baelish, Littlefinger, when he suggests just chuck the dagger in the river and forget about it. He says, I'm a Stark of Winterfell. My son is injured and saved by a wolf pup found in the snow. Do you think I'm just going to let this go? Really? As you'd expect, as cats want to do, she's told Petyr Baelish about the suspicions about Jon Arryn's death. And just a quick reminder, what they're referring to there is that Cersei had killed Jon Arryn, who is the former Hand of the King that Ned is replacing. I believe they assume it's by poison, based on the way that Jon Arryn died.
That's Kat's supposition, accusation.
Yes,
right.
Based on her sister Lysa's accusation.
Yeah, which was sent in the coded note.
The gibberish letter, yes. Now, I was just thinking she should really just take out an ad in the King's Landing Tribune. It would really get the word out faster.
But again, she's only telling Peter he's good with secrets. Or at least he knows how to use them to his benefit, at least. They're concerned whether Varys might already know.
If he doesn't know yet, he can just read about it on page 6 of tomorrow's paper, I guess. Big ad.
Yeah. So Ned sends Kat back to Winterfell immediately, which is a bit harsh because she didn't get to see the girls.
Right.
But they do make the point that kids talk, and
yes.
they don't want news of Kat ever having come to King's Landing to get out.
Right.
Not just that she's there, but they don't want this to ever get out that she was there.
Yes. And as much as I would like her to be able to see the girls, it is a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, there are just kids. They could very easily slip, and then that would open who knows what other cans of worms.
Littlefinger offers them the room, but they just need a few minutes for their goodbyes.
So Kat does tell Littlefinger before he leaves that she is glad to find the brother she thought she had lost. And I just wonder if she means that or not.
I think she does. I think he's proven himself to be on her side here.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think he says it in this chapter that he doesn't like the Starks, but he's willing to help them because of his fondness for Kat.
True. Yeah. I forgot about that.
And actually, all of that brings Ned to say thank you to Petyr Baelish, which is Petyr Baelish says, "Whoa, be still, my beating heart." Ned gives Kat instructions to raise bannermen and prepare to defend the north.
Yep, wants 200 archers fortifying Moat Cailin and to strengthen the defenses at White Harbor. He doesn't think it'll come to war, but he says the Lannisters are merciless to the weak, so he wants to show that they will put up a fight if need be.
Yeah. He's going to get the proof he needs and go to Robert and hope he's the man he thinks he is, not the man he's afraid that he has become.
That is the question.
Yeah.
He keeps saying how much he loves and needs Ned and how much he loved Lyanna, and he keeps frequently saying negative things about his wife. But so far, I feel like his actions have not exactly bared that.
No. In fact, what they've proven is that he really loves an easy life and lack of conflict with those around him.
He's going to do whatever it is to make his life easier.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
So background information, Grand Maester Pycelle has been on the Small Council for more than 40 years. Grand Maester is elected by the Conclave of the Citadel, which is the seat of learning of the Seven Kingdoms. He serves on the Small Council and is considered the Citadel's representative there too. It's commonly held that he is the most renowned maester, but the conclave elects the man they think will serve them best, usually one of the best, but they definitely consider cunning and politics in their choice.
Okay.
It's not just whoever's the most skilled.
Right.
Only the conclave has the right to remove the Grand Maester from the small council. But certain kings have worked around this technicality by the tried and tested means of killing the current one.
That's one way to do it.
Because
Try to keep him in office now.
tried and tested absent the others. Once the others come in, that may not work either, you know. Hey, I'm back.
That's right.
Pycelle comes across as rather feeble and decrepit, but it might be a front. At one point, Master Pycelle asks Petyr Baelish if the treasury can afford the tournament.
Yeah.
And Petyr Baelish's response is, "Spare me this foolishness, Maester. You know as well as I do that there's no money in the thing." Which strikes me as the kind of thing you wouldn't say to a doddering octogenarian, but it might be the kind of thing you'd say to someone pretending to be a doddering octogenarian.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So
See what you're getting at there.
it just feels like, I don't know. I mean, again, I have to be careful here because I do actually know what Pycelle is like. I think there's just some clues there that suggest that he's not quite what he's revealing himself to be.
Is anyone other than Ned at that table?
That's a good point.
Who are they pretending to be?
They mentioned that one of the people that we're part of the Seven Kingdoms.
I hope not.
Yes, that the Seven Kingdoms are in debt to is the Iron Bank of Braavos. It's the world's biggest bank. Its home is in Braavos. It's owned by many wealthy shareholders in Braavos and has a fearsome reputation for reclaiming its debts. Mm-hmm. So here you go. Sure, the Lannisters might be paying for their influence, but the Iron Bank of Braavos wants its money back.
Maybe they're getting the money from the Lannisters to pay the
They
debt.
may have to do that, but again...
That's why they keep getting further in debt to the Lannisters.
The senior management of the bank are known as key holders, and they wear ceremonial keys. Definitely not the best organization to be indebted to, I feel.
But I wonder, the Crown of Westeros is in debt to the
bank.
What's the bank going to do?
What's the leverage?
Yeah.
How are you going to get that money back? Well...
Your whole nation is who's in debt to you. How do you get that?
I will go out on a limb and assume that they've lent to other kings and other lords, and I bet they have a way. I bet they've established routes for extracting that money back, be it by assassination or... I mean, when they're lending to individuals, I'm sure they can just threaten them and torture them until they get their money kind of thing. But when they're lending to...
sovereign nation?
A sovereign nation, good choice. That's what I was looking for. Then they must have different routes to doing it, and it sounds like they're not above some pretty shady tactics.
Right. It must be.
But you also wonder when they're going to reclaim this debt. I mean,
I guess they're probably fairly forgiving, one, when you're dealing with a sovereign nation, and two, when they're so far in debt to you that you just need some sort of... Maybe they could cut off, we will give you no more money, but we need you to start paying us back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm no banker. I don't know how these things work. So anyway, Moat Cailin gets a reference because Ned tells Cat that she is to raise some archers, 200 archers, and they are to man Moat Cailin to defend the north from southern attack. So, Moat Cailin is one of the most important strongholds in the north. It dates back to the first men. It is on the northern edge of the neck. Despite being in partial ruin, it commands the causeway, which is the only way to lead troops to the north by foot. Due to the neck being a natural choking point, Moat Cailin is considered impenetrable from the south with only a small garrison of men. It commands the causeway from all sides so that the enemies must pass between them. Attackers face constant fire from the other towers. Oh, there's 3 towers. I don't think I mentioned that. There's 3 towers. So the attackers face constant fire from other towers should they attempt to attack any one particular tower. And they must wade through chest-deep water and crossing a moat full of lizard lions. Remember in Sansa 1, we talked about how unpleasant the neck area is. It's full of endless bogs and other nasty stuff. The stronghold has kept the north safe from southern invasion for centuries.
It's interesting, though, because we talked about this when we were in Sansa's chapter, that it didn't sound that impenetrable, but you said at the time, but Moat Cailin is what makes it impenetrable. But I'm still thinking, if I come north with a big army, and I lead that army with a couple of really big siege engines, like catapults, ballistas type thing, I just lay siege to those 3 towers and I just pound them to smithereens.
Yeah, what are you going to do with archers against a
Yeah, because
catapult?
the catapult, you can stay out of archery range.
Right.
And just keep pounding it with fire.
Yeah.
Get them on fire or something. It just seems
That's a
like
good point.
it's not completely impenetrable, this. I mean, I get the idea. If you just try to walk through there, they're going to rain down.
Right.
So, anyway, let's hope it works.
You make a solid point there.
So, comparison with the TV show, Book Ned takes a change of clothes before attending the small council. Show Ned is advised to do so, but by some snooty royal courtier, and is sneered at by Ned, who marches in his leathers. So, kind of like a different... Actually, I think Show Ned is more like the Ned we know here.
Right.
I don't think the Ned we know would change into someone else's clothes.
Just some rando's clothes. Yeah. It would be really funny if he was wearing... like Petyr Baelish's clothes. The pants stopped right at the calves. His shirt couldn't button all the way.
But pretty much everything else is captured. The small council meeting is verbatim, essentially, and then he goes off and sees Cat, and their conversation is much as it was reported here. So pedantry corner. One thing, this is just a technicality. This is just an editing thing, but you, in your summary, described them being 6 million golden dragons in debt, but the book actually says 6 million gold pieces in debt.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a difference. It's the only example I can find of the use of gold pieces in the book, so I think this was just an editing mistake.
It could be. I did notice it when I was putting the summary together and just thought, oh, he means golden dragons. But I never thought about whether that could just be a mistaken word use.
Yeah. So, and the other one is what we've talked about quite a bit, is why do people keep lending to the Iron Throne when they're not repaying their debts?
Yeah.
And that made me think what you said about the Iron Bank. When banks give loans, they want collateral. What are they offering as collateral here? You know, it seems like there can't be.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out.
So, conclusion, I think this is my favourite chapter thus far. I love the intrigues of court. I love Varys and Petyr Baelish.
Right.
And their intrigues.
Yeah, it's good stuff. We've got our first small council meeting.
Yeah.
And did not go swimmingly for Ned. And he's
Although, I have to say, it felt like all 4 other members of the council were on his side.
right.
It wasn't like he was getting pushback from them. They basically agreed with him.
That's true.
They were all saying, well, knowing what we know, we're going to plan for this tournament to happen because it's going to happen.
Yes.
But you are right. This is crazy.
We all notice how crazy this is. We're just going to do it because the king says so.
Yeah. So
I guess I was meaning him feeling like he doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Was kind of what I meant by it. It didn't go very well. He notices, I'm not like these other guys. I'm not cut out for this kind of political game that's required to be Hand of the King. Although he's the second most powerful person in the realm, so I guess maybe he could make some changes. I don't know. They're still.
the problem is the one thing he really needs to change is the most powerful person in the realm. That's the,
right.
That's the biggest single change.
Yeah, but he's been in King's Landing for a few hours already, and he's not exactly making a lot of friends, which kind of reminds me of a certain son of his much, much further north.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, he hasn't beaten anyone up in the sparring yard yet.
Right. Neither one are excelling in the old bread-making department so far. But give Ned credit. He's only been here for a few hours.
Yes.
John's had a little more time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I really love the richness of the relationships on the small council, both the bilateral and the multilateral relationships. Fascinating glimpse. Hopefully we'll get to watch those unfold.
I'm sure we will. Oh, and just as a reminder, we are attempting to still do our episode increase. We're trying to do 2 a week, so you got that to look forward to. If you enjoy listening to us, you get to listen to us twice as much.
If you feel like we keep skipping chapters, you're probably missing the other episode that went out earlier in the week.
Yes, that's true.
You keep thinking, hey, it's Sunday, hooray, it's Ghost of Harrenhal Day. You're missing one.
Yes. Go back and look.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you all again. We really appreciate all of our listeners all over the world. You guys are great.
Yes,
And
definitely.
we could do this without you. it would feel a bit more insane just talking into this microphone if nobody listened.
We wouldn't even bother to turn it on.
Like we did that one time.
And that reminds me of a funny thing I saw on Twitter this past week. I think it was Pod Nation, had posted, what's your biggest failure thus far in your podcasting? And one guy said he did an interview with some screenwriter or something like that, but he didn't turn the other guy's mic on. So it was just 45 minutes of him talking to himself.
Ouch.
That's what I said. I was like, oh, man. It made me laugh out loud, but then I was like, I'm so sorry that I can't even imagine how you deal with that. Anyway. So, as always, you can reach us at ghosts.harrenhall@gmail.com, and please go out and follow us on Twitter if you would, at @ghostharrenhall, and we are also on Facebook and on Instagram, so all various ways that we'd love for you to go interact with us.
Yeah. Please like, subscribe, and leave us reviews.
That would be great. Really help us get the word out.
Okay, thanks for everything.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.